Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies, wherever you are. Welcome to a new year. Yes, it's 2023. And yes, as promised, I came with strategies and just some more information about how to make it in 2023 under the patriarchy. I know. It's all over social media. You have smash the patriarchy hashtags left and right. But do you really know what patriarchy is? There's a lot going on, a lot of attacks on Black women specifically, regarding, things, ridiculous, toxic things about, Black women's bodies, how we behave, and things of that nature. And just a lot of misogyny out there is rampant. And a lot of it is getting physical to the point that government agencies are watching these incels online. So, help is on the way, ladies. But in the meantime, because we know that patriarchy is something that Black women have to deal with globally, regardless of where you are, whether you're in North America, Central America, South America, whether you're on the continent of Africa, living in Europe, wherever you are, we understand. Even if we cannot articulate it with the words, we don't have the right words or the right definition for patriarchy, because patriarchy has a lot of children. But one of its most prevalent and dominant children is racism. So, every day we talk about the new forms of colonization in marginalized communities, even though people of color far, outnumber, other, if you want to go by skin colors, if you want to go by that, if you want to go in terms of definitions in terms of, people of color versus, people not of color, or, people of European descent. People of color outnumber them, but we have this thing called colonization. We have this thing called patriarchy. We have this thing called racism, and they're all connected. And as women, globally, women are suffering under patriarchy and have been suffering under patriarchy for millennia. Women have had to be very strategic. They've had to be very savvy in order for us to, survive. And, things are coming to a head. I think a lot of us women can agree that, a lot is changing, a lot is shifting, and there's a lot of pushback because of that. You see that in the levels and increases, dramatic and scary increases in femicide, violence against women and girls and children, the elderly. All of these things, they're all connected. All these wars and, all these uprisings in other parts of the world. You have protests, you have what's going on in Iran right now, but that is not different from what is going on in parts of Africa, where you have women, taking on politicians, fighting for women's rights, particularly women's reproductive rights, pushing back on very archaic rules and regulations around behavior of women and protections of women, quote unquote. So there's a lot going on. So we are not special here in, North America or in Europe either. Women are still fighting for their rights here in North America. That's going to be a huge issue come the elections. We're actually cycling up. There's going to be a lot more of campaigning going on, a lot money being thrown left and right, because you have these extremist groups that really want to dominate and take over women's rights and take them away. We have different states passing all kinds of crazy laws to have dominion over women's bodies. So in the midst of that chaos, in the midst of that stress and trauma, we still have to keep moving forward. We still have to live. And if you are a Black woman, girl, I don't have to tell you, the struggle is real. So let's talk about getting the strategies and the tips and all of those things that you can put in your toolkit to help you not only survive, but thrive in the midst of it. And guess what? One of your main weapons of warfare is self-care. Yes. And I'm not talking about that stuff that's all, social media. Self-care, self-love. This kind of self-care is war. This kind of self-care is strategy. This kind of self-care is radical. And it's really active, because when you do the work, when you start doing the work that you need to do up here, in here, and around you, you'll see that, you're going to sweat for this. But I'm here to tell you that there are huge rewards and payoffs for this fight, and for, you doing the work. It's a work in progress. It's not one and done. I've been on this journey for a while now, and every day, every moment of every day, and I'm grateful for each and every one of them, I'm reminded that I still have work to do inside. I still have internal work to do, because there are things that come up. It's just like when you go to therapy, if you have the good fortune to be able to access those services, and that's something we'll talk about in another video. If you don't have access to mental health services, especially if you're in other parts of the world where you don't really have the healthcare infrastructure for things like therapy and things of that nature, with, thank God for technology and all that's being done online in terms of creating virtual spaces and even apps for therapeutic purposes for people to use. We can use all of those things. So whether you are on iOS devices or whether you're on Android devices, there are apps you can utilize. In the next video, I'll be going over some apps you can use globally for your mental health, especially if access, and I'm talking access in terms of physically or financially, you don't have the access to, mental health services. That is a privilege for a lot of people, depending on where you are in the world. So we're going to address that in another video. But today I'm going to get started on, just breaking down a little bit. Let's start with patriarchy, because the last video I talked about getting the self-care mindset, and that is super, 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 super important. If you don't have a mindset for self-care, you're not going to stick with it, let alone dig internally and do the work internally that's uncomfortable to do to begin with. Think of it this way. Nobody says, oh, if they have not been working out for months and months or years, or they've never worked out a day in their life, and they say, oh, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to go for a run for 1 hour. Good luck with that. That somebody saying that is telling you right there they have no preparation and no idea of what's involved, because any runner will tell you, any person that does, runs every day, has built up the endurance and all of that to be a runner, and all of that as a way of powering down, of staying healthy and all of that. They will tell you, you got to work up to that, boo. So we already know. So I don't know why anybody would think that something as critical as self-care, that's a little lifesaver, especially if you don't have access to a lot of healthcare resources to begin with. Okay, that's for another conversation and another video. So you know where I'm going with this. So let me I've got some notes here, and I'm just going to give a really good, because I did a little bit of, I wanted to have some write up my notes and stuff. So I was going to have a video last week to kick off the new year, but I decided, you know what, let me give it a little more time, do a little more research so that I have a little more things to add to the table of of info and, just advice and tips and strategies for my girls out here in the real world, not the celebrities, the women in the real world, navigating life and trying to survive and not do more than survive, because we know that being in survival mode, I can tell you as a women's self-care coach and a health coach, that being in survival mode perpetually 24/7, that's trauma in and of itself, because our bodies were not designed to be in that fight or fight mode indefinitely. It breaks down your body internally. It affects your gut health. It affects your hormones. It affects everything up to the cellular level and all of that. And that's not even talking about how it affects you spiritually and emotionally. So we don't want to be in that fight or flight mode. And if you're in that mode, it's time to get out. But you need to know the strategies. One, you got to recognize, you got to get the right mindset to begin the self-care process, period. But let's talk about patriarchy, because I know a lot of us, throw this around, particularly on social media and stuff like that. But people are throwing, around terms that they don't really understand what it means. They're just repeating and regurgitating what somebody else has said. So let me give it to you. Patriarchy is a social system in which men hold primary power and women are subordinated. Women are at the bottom. Sound familiar? This system harms all women. Black, white, yellow, blue, green, purple. It affects all women and it causes harm to all women. But Black women experience a unique form of this oppression because they're both Black and women. Okay? This is something they call intersectionality, because you are affected in more than one dimension. It's not just, oh, you're a woman, you're dealing with patriarchy because you're a woman. That aspect of race gets added in, courtesy of racism, which is the child, the oldest child of patriarchy. Okay? This intersectionality means that Black women are not only disadvantaged by patriarchy, but also racism and white supremacy. And that takes various forms. You have the more generalized form, especially the kind we have here in North America and in parts of Europe. But you also have that other one called colonization, colonizers. Okay, we have that. So you have that white supremacy and you have that racism, and all of this makes a toxic mix that is very traumatic and harmful to Black women. Now, you have another dimension of that, and that is the patriarchy within the Black experience, where you have Black men as a collective. I don't want to hear not all Black men, but Black men as a collective also harm Black women with the Black version of patriarchy. That one is equally toxic and harmful. So we have, as Black women, we have all of these points of intersection, or points and opportunities for trauma that Black women experience. All of this. And so one way in which Black women are not safe under patriarchy, because we're talking today, remember now in the last video, I talked about how we're going to address issues of personal safety, mental health, financial security, and things of that nature. And this is just following in line with that. So if you have not caught up to the whole discussion, if you're new to my channel, my name is Tonia Barango Taria. I'm a women's self-care and health coach here at freedomatthecrossroads.com. That is my blog and website. And here, the Self-Care Maven, This is also associated with that. You can also find more spicy dialogue at the Undomesticated Woman podcast. And I talk more about the effects of patriarchy. I have some discussions about that as well, and some ideas on that. And like I said last year, before ending out the year, that going forward, we're going to be having some interviews and some more guest appearances. And it wasn't just going to be me giving my thoughts, opinions, and stuff like that, even though that's kind of cool because I have a lot to say, and I'm sure you do too. So let's build up the community in that respect. Getting back to things though, one way in which Black women are not safe under patriarchy, and we're talking safety, and we're not just talking about, financial security. No, we're talking about physical safety, literally. The numbers for, Black femicide are terrible and they're scary. 4.5 hours every 4.5 hours. And that's not just here in the US, North America. It's a lot worse in places like South Africa, where it's 5.5. It is scary crazy. If you want more details, hit me up in the comments. Make sure you follow and subscribe to my channel. The World Health Organization does have resources on gender-based violence against women as well, but I do have links on my blog too for community resources if that's a thing that you need to access. And I can get that to you as well if you just need, just drop it in the comments and I will do my level best. I get a lot of emails and a lot of, conversations on the back channel where people are asking, for different resources. So it might take a little bit, but I'll get it out to you as soon as possible. But getting back to patriarchy, one of the ways in which Black women are not safe under patriarchy is through the devaluation of our bodies. Yes. So all of this toxic rap music, all this kind of lyrics that are denigrating Black women's bodies, whether it's Afro beats, whether it's hip hop, rap, and what have you, all of these lyrics that are really violent in nature. If you take away the nice juicy beat and you listen to the lyrics, you hear how damaging that is to the psyche, and we're internalizing that misogynoir and that patriarchy and violence, verbal violence against women. And that's why I personally really started filtering the kinds of music that I expose myself to, because just like affirmations affect you on the subconscious level and you internalize that music and those lyrics associated with it also get internalized. That's for another video. But back to what I was saying about patriarchy and how it puts a price tag on the bodies of women. Patriarchy teaches that women's bodies are objects to be desired or rejected, and Black women's bodies have been historically hypersexualized and dehumanized. This leads to Black women being disproportionately subject to such sexual violence and harassment. I mentioned briefly in the last video how the statistics were very dark in terms of the levels of sexual violence and assault that Black women have suffered between the ages of 8 and 18 alone. Very disturbing. And I don't want to get into it here on this video because I don't want to get sidetracked by that, because I want to stick to the topic of this patriarchy and, as it relates to safety and being safe in 2023. And I'm just highlighting, using these examples to, get it across to you. If you're having difficulty articulating and understanding what that means, that's why I said, okay, you know what? I think we need to talk about patriarchy and what it is and what it does and how it affects us. And I'm sure as I'm saying this, as I'm relating this information to you, you're saying, that's what I was trying to articulate. Yes, you feel it in the air, in the atmosphere, in the music. It's on the social media. Attack. So you have to have strategies and tools to deal with those kind of stresses and attacks and trauma. because some people might call it stress, some people might call it, oh, you just feel like you need your space. But those are all things that are telling you that you lack the words and the phraseology, if you will, to articulate what it is. It's trauma. And when you don't address trauma, when you don't heal it, guess what? It festers, it becomes a wound, it becomes toxic, and you go spiraling down, and you lose ability to focus, you lose ability to analyze your situation, and you get stuck in a destructive, dark cycle with no way out, no way for prosperity. And you find yourself in a position where you're living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, or what have you, just trying to survive. We are human beings, we are women, we are powerful. If we know what to do to release our power, to express it, to embrace it, and to level up from where we are given our current situation, whatever that looks like for you, okay? So back to patriarchy. The way women's bodies, Black women's bodies, are objectified and valued leads to Black women being disproportionately subject to sexual violence, again, and harassment. Additionally, the medical establishment, it's historical. If you need more data, by all means, Google is free. This is not the video that's addressing, all the trauma that Black women sustained in the name of gynecology. Until this day, there are very, very few Black people that totally trust the medical infrastructure for that reason alone, whether you're somewhere in Europe, here in the Americas, or even on the continent. Because even for those of our ancestors and those who never left the continent during the colonial era, these things were going on the motherland as well. You just don't have very good documentation, written documentation of it. But there are stories that were passed down of how people were treated, how people were disappeared, how women were treated and mistreated. There are books that allude to that. There's literature even that alludes to some of that kind of treatment written by African authors, here to eternity. Back in the day, I remember growing up as a kid, and there were a number of novels by Black African feminist authors where they alluded to, treatment by, colonial forces in parts of Africa, in Central Africa, in West Africa, in Southern Africa, all of that. So we know this. And so we want to, make sure all of this historical stuff, this is historical generational trauma that collectively we have to address as women and heal from and move forward from. And, knowledge truly is power, but you don't embrace and activate your power unless unless you awaken to your situation, until you get that, okay, I am aware, my eyes are open, I see what's going on, I see what's in operation around me. Once you know, you can assess, you can plan, you can take action. And that's what this is about. And that's why, today's video is about, digging into the patriarchy and how it harms Black women, and what we can use, how we can use self-care as a weapon, a powerful weapon to combat its effects and level up, thrive, and not just survive. In 2023, it's a new year. It's time to move on from that. It's time to release ourselves collectively from that. But first, you've got to do the work. And part of doing the work is getting the knowledge and understanding of the situation as it is for all of us. Some are better off than others, but guess what? We all operate and are moving under the umbrella, if you will, of patriarchy. That's just the reality of it. And so when it comes to, things like, the medical establishment and how it has often ignored or dismissed the health concerns of Black women, that is still happening. as up until 2022 and even into 2023, leading to higher rates of maternal mortality and other health disparities. Guess what? This has always been a thing. Okay, there's history attached to it, how Black women were used as guinea pigs for all of these kind of crazy gynecological procedures without consent. Violence was perpetrated on them against their wills. They were held down, they were manacled, trigger warning, they were manacled, and all of this, while these male white physicians, calling themselves physicians but monsters, did all kinds of horrific surgical procedures on them, because in their minds, Black female bodies did not matter. They did not feel pain in their estimation and were on par with animals. So they felt that they could torture and dissect human bodies without anesthesia. Okay, so if you want to get further into that, there's plenty of research on that. There are a number of books on that. Also, you can go to my virtual bookshelf on Amazon. The link is in my bio, where you can get a hold of that link. I'll actually post it at the bottom of this video in the comments, and so you can go to my virtual bookshelf. I'm always adding to that. I curate certain books for women to read and expand their minds and get some more knowledge, and off of that you can build and create and add to your own collection depending on your interests and the questions you have going on. But this is a community for us, and always say, let's keep conversation going here in this space. This is a new channel of mine, and I'm decided to really invest in all of us by bringing just some of my information and some of the work I do freely to my community here on YouTube. So take advantage of it, because some of it will always be available, not all of it. As things move forward, some content will be curated for my VIP body of women who want to do deeper work with me and things of that nature. But by and large, all of this information I'm making available to you because I feel like we all need it, and the only way for us to advance collectively as Black women is we need to support and share information and level up and lift each other up and encourage each other and support each other, because if we don't do it, no one will. Guess what? No one's coming to rescue you. So you can't rest in any femininity, submit in any fantasy world and think that you'll be taken care of. You've got to do it yourself. The only way to guarantee your own safety and security is to do the work, get allies on board, make connections and form relationships and allyships and all of those cooperatives to empower all of us to do better and make this world a better place. So that was just a little bit of what is going on, and that's just a little bit of background information regarding patriarchy. Now that we know some the ugly stuff associated with patriarchy, you see it playing out in the real world in terms of things like workplace violence, microaggressions, women being paid unequally relative to their male counterparts, Black women in particular being paid less, not just less than their male, not just less than Black men, not just less than white men, not just less than white women. So you see all of this, there's levels to this. And so it can be a lot if you don't have the right tools to level up. There are women all over rising up, Black women globally rising up, breaking the ceilings and making breakthroughs. But by and large, it's still a relatively conservative percentage, and we want to explode that out. I won't be happy till at least 80 to 90% of Black women globally are thriving, not just surviving. And I'm talking about in terms of their reproductive health, maternal health, all of that, mental health, emotional health, the numbers of violence against women coming down, dismantling of patriarchy, which is the superstructure that all of this is built on. We've got to tear it down, sis. We've got to tear it down. The only way forward for the entire world to save the planet. That's why when I hear all these climate change, this, climate change, that, guess what? Nothing gets done. To this day, nothing gets done. The person that is overseeing the whole climate aspect of, renewables and all of that is one of the, main pollution barons on the planet. Oil. So how does that make sense? The math is not mathing. And patriarchy is a system that seeks to dominate everything under it. And you're talking about the world. You're talking about resources, because it's patriarchy that comes up with this paternalistic idea of, oh, we are stewards of the earth. We have dominion over our God says we have dominion over the earth. No, you don't. You're destroying it. Everything is connected. Those kind of systems are built and reinforced by patriarchy. That is the God of these people. That is their God. It's a God of dominion and destruction. And that's why the world is in the state that it's in. And am I getting mad and passionate about it? Yes, because I'm sick of it, and I'm not the only one. There are millions of women across the globe that feel the exact same way, and that's why I'm here today. Because we need to do this globally as a collective. And the first part of progress is to get our own crap together. Our own SHIT together, individually, so that collectively, as a healed collective, we can move things forward and change this world and take it by storm and start tearing this crap down so that the world and the planet does not die. Every living thing on this earth, down to the cellular level, is relying on us Black women globally, period, to save it. Because guess what? The patriarchy can't do it. Why? It does not have the vision, the foresight, the creative aspect to do it. That's why there's war everywhere. Fights over water, fights over food, fights over land. Killing everywhere. And who are the casualties? Women, children, and the elderly. So here we are. It's time to do the work, sis. So not to drag on and keep it going too long, this is where we start. We start with patriarchy because that's the point of context. It allows us to understand the system that is in operation, and then you go from there and see, okay, this is where I am. This is where my situation is. This is why my situation is looking like this based on what is going around. Okay. I'm in the healthcare industry, and science is, a thing, and, critical analysis is a thing, and the ability to think critically is a thing. And you have to recognize the forces that are in operation in order to change your state. Wake it up. So back to the whole patriarchy here. We're talking about what, we've already talked about how patriarchy affects, women's health and things like that in terms of reproductive health. Things like female genitalia mutilation and all of that, FMG, all of that crap. That's patriarchy. There's no basis in science. It's all about dominion. Telling women, you must bear the offspring of the person that assaulted you and destroyed your life. Hello? So I'm not gonna get off into the weeds on that, because that is another topic. You can listen to the Undomesticated Woman podcast and see how I break that down. You can see that listen to that conversation, because I'm not going to bring it here to YouTube right now. That's another video for another time. But yes, it's a thing. So now that we've talked about patriarchy, what part does self-care come into that? Well, self-care is a restorative and reparative, active tool, or rather toolkit, to help you level up and remove yourself, unplug from that damaging force, unplug from that, detach from that. And it's a way to shield. So that is your whole armor that protects you. And no armor is 100% effective. That's just the reality of life. No armor is 100% effective. But guess what? I'd rather have 80-90% protection from destructive force than none at all. And not having self-care is exactly what that is. That's like standing in the midst of a bomb exploding in front of you with no shielding. And I'm saying it like that because I want you to understand the importance and how critical self-care is for Black women. So that thing where, oh, superwoman, you got the cape, everybody's got you. Oh, sis, we need you to do this at the church function, at the community center, and all of this and all of that. You work from how many hours of the day, and you never put yourself first. And when I say never put yourself first, I don't care. I don't count those instances where you say, oh girl, I'm gonna get my nails done, I do a facial, and those are incidentals. Those are little treats. That's like having a cookie or ice cream after dinner. That's not something that is restorative, that is reparative, that builds you up and gives you armor to deal with the crazy that's outside your door, and sometimes inside your own doors, inside your own, depending on your situation. Self-care is restorative, it's reparative, and it is combative. Because what? You're fighting against the structures and the things, the stresses and the forces that are picking at you, that are shooting you with all kinds of things, that are, really trying to destroy you from the inside out. You have things like if you work in an office situation, and say, for instance, you're the only Black woman there, you're marginalized, you see things in operation, you complain to HR and this or that, nothing gets done. By the way, HR is not your friend. I'm going to tell you that now. Anybody in HR, if they're being truthful, will tell you HR is not your friend. It's for the company to keep them out of the courts. That's all. It's not for you. If you really want an advocate for you, that would be a union. That would be having an attorney outside or some other kind of legal aid outside your place of work. I'm just telling you. Been there, done there, burnt the t-shirt. They're not for you. Okay? And that's regardless of whether you're a Black woman or Black man or white man or white woman or whatever. That's the way most of these organizations work. If you're lucky to work at an organization where HR is really, tries to be a mediator and really tries to, meet the needs of both the employer and the employee, but in the real world, 90% of the time, 99, I would argue 95% of the time, they're not for you. So just putting that out there. So you have to deal with those kind of issues. You're dealing with misogyny, harassment from male counterparts, aggressions and things of that nature. You're dealing with financial insecurity because you may or may not have lost your job, or you're underpaid and things of that nature. So these are all examples. Or you're living in an unsafe situation where you have you're suffering abuse at the hands of an intimate partner, or it's family based. All of these things affect you. Guess what? Self-care is, like I said, is a reparative, it's a restorative force, it is combative, it helps to secure you and keep you intact and help you heal. because you do the kind of work where you do work to restore your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health. We're talking about things about what you eat. A good way to relieve stress is something as simple as walking. I remember back in the day when things, I remember my older sister, when she was going through a lot of stuff, she found that walking, she would walk around the neighborhood for hours on end, and that gave her relief. I also know that for her, gardening was restorative for her. She had a green thumb. She was somebody who always had her hands in soil, and every time she came back from that, you saw it in her face how she had been restored, and it had really done something internally for her. So those are just, those are practices that people have depending on your situation, what your needs are. Also, you need to identify, based on your interests, the things that will minister to you individually. There is no cookie cutter method when it comes to self-care. That's why I said this thing about when you see these stupid trends on Instagram or other social media where you're somebody having a spa day and all of that. The average woman, the average Black woman, is working hard, putting herself at the bottom of the list, if she's even on it, and feels like she has not made space, rather, for her own care and and nurturing and all of that, and safety. And self-care is also about securing your personal safety. For instance, if you live in a neighborhood or a space that is physically unsafe for you, if you have children, for you and your children, you've got to address that situation. You've got to find resources. You've got to connect with resources, whether they're in the community, virtually, or in person, that can help you get to a more secure space. If that means something like going temporarily to a women's shelter, or going to stay with a family member that is supportive of you, that's a thing. So these are all considerations you have to take into place, and these are just some of the things I wanted to bring up today. And I could go on and on and on and on, but in the next video, I'm going to talk more about, just outlining what self-care should look like. In terms of strategy, mental self-care is a thing. You've got to do it. You've got to do something that's going to help you get rid of the noise in your head. All of that stress of playing back, how people talk to you or treated you or what was done to you, and you're just going over all of that in your mind. You need to have some kind of way to address and relieve that so that you can be healthy up here. This is, you can, for those who have access, therapy is a thing. Practicing mindfulness, meditation is not necessarily doing yoga poses and no. Meditation is having a quiet corner, someplace that is separate and isolated, where you can just release and think about nothing, even if it's just for 5 to 10 minutes. That alone is restorative in and of itself. Being able to just mind dump, close off your mind, not think of anything. Get into the practice of just literally erasing, letting everything drain out of your head, not thinking about anything. You look at a point, pick a point on the wall ahead of you, or if you're outside, pick a point, a leaf on a tree, and look at it blindly without focusing for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So I know a lot of people say that, it's hard for them to meditate. I can't do it for more than 5 minutes. That's fine. But you got to start somewhere at some point. And you begin to reap the benefits of just doing that. Pick a point, whether it's a tree, whether it's a wall, whether it's a plant, whether it's the river, whether it's a rock, whether it's a shoe, whatever. Stare at it. 5 minutes. No thinking, just blankly looking, no focus, looking at it. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7, 8, 9, 10, and just go up, 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 up. Physical self-care, another self-care strategy. For some people, they literally meditate when they do things like they walk. Like, I've seen and talked to people, and I've even done it myself in certain spaces where I would aimlessly walk just to, you've heard that, I'm sure you've heard that term where people said, I just need to go on a walk and clear my mind. That's literally what they're doing, but they are actively walking while they're meditating. Some people cannot sit still and meditate. Some people can walk aimlessly and literally be meditating at the same time. And that's why I say there's no cookie cutter method when it comes to things, to self-care strategies. You have a general theme, you have a general concept of it, but it's not a one size fits all for every woman, because every woman's situation is different, and every body's mindset, everybody is in a different space and a different journey and all of that. And that's okay. We're all different, fundamentally different as human beings. Even twins, identical twins, are different. And so that is fine. The point of the matter is having the practice in place and using it consistently so that you get the benefit of it. Next thing, community self-care. And that's things like connecting with other people, other Black women who understand your situation, who understand your challenge. Not that I'm saying trauma bond, because that is not healthy. Trauma bonding is where you all get in a group, everybody is talking about the trauma and suffering that they experience, and then everybody just, you leave that place feeling worse than when you came in. No, everybody giving space to everybody else's story and journey, and supporting each other. How can I support you? Let's do this collectively to see how, let's go for a walk together, let's meditate together, let's talk about it, do some talk therapy with each other. Let's talk about, share our experiences, and talk about how can we help each other feel better and level up and move up. Do you have, maybe we can trade, there's some way of trading something for you have something I need, I have something you need. Let's trade and lift each other up and help each other. Okay. It's community self-care. Those are just 3 examples. So community self-care, physical self-care, mental health self-care. Those are 3 strategies you can start using today. Another thing from a meditation standpoint, okay, say for instance, like meditation, like you said, you know what, Tony, my thoughts race too much, I can't even do meditation. Another good thing is try doing a mind dump, and that's where you just write whatever is in your head in a notebook. And I love journals because they're pretty. I have one. I mentioned, I think I pointed it out in my previous video about almost 2 weeks ago, where I showed you the journal I was I had purchased from a Black female-owned author and entrepreneur. It was really lovely, and it looked like me. So that's what I wanted to do, and I got that from me, and it's a journal, an organizer, and a planner. And I also said too, at the end of this month, I will be debuting my one of my self-care journals, a 30-day self-care journal for Black women, and I'll be putting that'll be available on Amazon, and I'll be dropping that into the video when I release that a couple weeks from now. So that's slated to come out the end of this month, and that's a 30-day self-care, self-love journal with prompts. So it's basically going to have prompts for you on the daily, or reflection for you portion on that too, and a little exercise for you to do, and you can use that. I make it 30 days because you need to evaluate every time you go forward, and it's a 30-day planner, and it's not a planner, it's a 30-day journal, and you just get another one every month. And so that's how that works. I feel like you should use it every month and enjoy it, and go back at the end of the month, and then just reflect on what you put in there and do a self-check as well. So hope you enjoyed this video. This is Tony Taria, the self-care maven. Welcome to my channel. Make sure you hit the notification button, follow my channel. You can find me on Instagram at ttariahealth. You can find me on Twitter as well. Just hit the links in on the bio here on my channel, and you'll find all of my social links. Constantly adding to those too, but definitely tune in for more. And then in the next video, we'll be continuing on with this, and we'll be breaking down more into some strategies and tips and ideas for self-care. Particularly for Black women. We'll be talking more about safety as well, because that is an issue, especially within the Black community. There's a lot of dysfunction that we have as a community collectively, the Black community as collectively has resisted addressing. And, you know, a lot of that is suppressing trauma and suppressing instances of abuse. And if we as women collectively are going to move forward, we've got to start hitting on those points, and we've got to be pulling back the carpet and washing that dirty laundry and shining lights on it so people can heal and move on and people be held accountable. So I'm going to be touching briefly on that too in the next video, but just wanted to share that with you. And thanks again for following me here at Freedom at the Crossroads. As well is my blog associated with the Self-Care Maven channel here. So make sure you follow me at freedomatthecrossroads.com. That's the blog and website associated with this channel. So tune into that as well. I do give recipes, a lot of lifestyle content as well. So feel free to follow and leave a comment, sign up to, you know, the newsletter that comes out periodically. I don't bombard people with newsletters. I just find it very irritating when I receive them. So only periodically will you get a newsletter. And sometimes there'll be a little bit gifties inside, like little freebies I tend to gift my community with as well. And so take advantage of all of those, whatever will help you. I do have virtual, when you sign up to the newsletter, there is a virtual gift in there as well for self-care as well for women. So it's virtual. You can download it onto your device. So that's helpful if resources are an issue for you. I believe that is also helpful too. So by all means, go to my community resources page. But thank you for following me. Thank you for tuning in, and subscribe and leave a comment and share your experiences. I hope this was helpful for you. Till next time, bye.